Hey there everybody, Tom here. Thank you very much for visiting my YouTube channel and for joining me for this, my non-spoiler review of Thor Ragnarok. Aiden, shut the fuck up. Now look, I've heard a lot of people in other reviews and just going around the internet that Thor Ragnarok is just a silly comedy, and I'm here to tell you it is not a comedy. Is this a very, very funny movie? Yes, it is. But is it also a serious movie? I think it is. This movie, I think what it does really well is blend humor while having probably some of the biggest stakes and some of the biggest risks to the entire Marvel universe that any MCU movie has ever had before. It combined really good humor with some really serious themes. Also in saying that, it is by far the funniest of any Marvel MCU movie to come before it. Now let's talk about the way the humor was used in this movie, because while I walked out of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 earlier this year, having enjoyed myself and thinking it's a good movie, it's not great, and I had a lot of problems with Guardians of the Galaxy 2, and one of my major issues with it was that the story would stop dead in its tracks to tell a joke or to have a gag or someone says a quip or a funny line somewhere like that. Whereas in Thor Ragnarok, all of the jokes I felt came up organically, and the story didn't stop just so they could say a one-liner here or there. Now, as you know, Chris Hemsworth, Thor himself, is from Australia, and the director, Taika Waititi, is from New Zealand. And so there's going to be a lot of, well, not a lot of, but there's going to be some jokes and references that I feel will hit New Zealanders and Australians harder than it will most people. There's going to be some people who hear certain jokes and references to certain Australian things or New Zealand things in this movie, and they're going to go, I don't get that. And that's just a cultural thing, and as an Australian, I found those jokes absolutely hilarious. Thor Ragnarok is a very, very fast-paced movie. It moves extremely quickly. By the end of the movie, when the movie was finished, I looked at my watch and was like, wow, like, is that all? I thought it was going to be longer, and it's a 2 hour and 10 minute movie, but the story moves so quickly that just time flies through this movie. And sometimes I felt like the pacing was a little off, but not too much that it really bothered me or took me out of the movie, but the story does move rather fast. I actually think it might be the most fast-paced MCU movie to date. Now I'm going to go through and talk about the major players in this movie and what I thought of each of them. First of all, Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. I don't want to say too much about her character because this is a non-spoiler review, and I will be doing a spoilers review coming up in a few days where I get to talk about all the juicy spoilers. But Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, she's really, really good in this movie. When you first meet her in the movie, she's kind of like, she's like, I don't want anything to do with what you guys are doing. I'm just here to make Thor fight the Hulk in that grand championship arena that you guys have seen in the trailer. And and then eventually in the trailer that she obviously joins with Thor and goes on the quest with him, and watching her character go through that and seeing how the dynamics between her and Thor, her dynamic between her and the Hulk was one of my favorite interactions in the entire movie, is those two. Tom Hiddleston crushes it in this as Loki. I've always loved him as Loki, and I actually think this might be his best work as Loki, and I think so, but I mean, he's always been great, but also I think this might be the best that Loki's ever been written. I love everything Loki had to do in this movie. He does so many things in this film that make you go, whoa, that was cool. And it's just awesome, and I nerded the fuck out. Thor Ragnarok has the best use of Led Zeppelin's Immigrant Song that I have ever seen in any TV show, any movie ever. It was awesome, and I geeked out a lot. And it was actually a really appropriate song to use at the moment in the film that they did. I will talk about more of that in my spoilers review, but I love the use of that song. Now, if you guys have seen the trailers, you will know this isn't a spoiler, that Doctor Strange is in Thor Ragnarok. They have made it very public that Doctor Strange is in Thor Ragnarok. And he is in this movie for as much as you would expect him to be. Don't go in expecting him to be in half the movie, because he's not. But what he is in this movie is great. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it's actually organically. They didn't just shove him in this story just to connect him to the other, Marvel, wider, larger Marvel Cinematic Universe. He has a very important role to play in this movie, but it isn't large, but it is really, really well done. Alright, let's talk about the big green guy, the Hulk. Now, when I first saw the trailer, I think it was the second trailer that they released where you saw the Hulk speak, the Comic-Con trailer. Now, when I first saw that trailer, yes, it was really funny and I laughed a lot, but I wasn't sure whether speaking Hulk was going to get annoying to me, whether it was just going to become, a gag and they're just going to keep using it over and over and it was just going to become very annoying. And I can tell you right now, they don't overuse it and it doesn't get annoying and it's priceless. His lines of dialogue and what he gets to do in this movie are priceless. Now, I need to talk about the fight between Thor and Hulk in the Gladiator Arena. That fight is so much more than I ever expected it to be in all the right ways. It's so, so good. It's one of my favorite scenes in any Marvel movie ever. Now, I wanted to touch on Idris Elba as Heimdall, because in the first two Thor movies, he doesn't really do much. In fact, he doesn't do anything. He stands there and watches over people and tells other people where people are. But he doesn't really do much. And in Thor 3, in Ragnarok, he actually gets to do stuff. Oh my god, I've been waiting for this for so long. Idris Elba does something in this movie and it was great. Finally. Alright, now, I've had a long, long list of positives, so now let's get to the negatives. Let's talk about some shit that I didn't like in Thor Ragnarok, and to be honest with you, there's not a lot of it. Two minor issues I have with Thor Ragnarok. The first issue is, sometimes, especially in the first half of this movie, there is some questionable green screen and CGI. It doesn't look like the effects were quite finished, or the green screen was quite polished up a bit, but it didn't bother me enough to take me out of the movie, but it is noticeable. And the other issue I have with this movie is during the third act, there's an action scene going on, and to me, it felt like it should have been longer. And normally, I'm one of these people that's like, don't drag your fight scenes out for too long because they can just become visual noise. It's just like a Transformers movie when fights go on for too long. You're just like, okay, this fight's gone on for way too long, hurry up. And this was one action scene that I was like, no, that should have been a little bit longer. It should have been drawn out. And certain things that happened to different characters, I was like, well, that happened rather quickly. And I felt like it needed to be drawn out just a little bit longer, maybe 5 minutes longer. But other than that, I really had no major issues with Thor Ragnarok. Now, there are 2 post-credit scenes in this movie, so just look out for those. Stick around right until the end of the credits because, as I said, there are 2 post-credit scenes. But that is my review of Thor Ragnarok. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Come back and watch my spoilers review where I get into all things spoilers about Thor Ragnarok. That's coming next week. Look out for my other reviews and videos coming real soon. And I will talk to you guys next time.